Hello, my name is Justice. Cut scene. Okay. I clicked there. That's helpful.
I really don't know when to look at you or the camera.
Let me shut this door.
Okay. Are you ready?
I am.
Hey Central Youth, welcome to another week of Teen Talk Tuesday. Every Tuesday, we get together with some of our teens and we talk about faith, life, and everything in between. Well, this week, my wife, Michaela, she's going to be sitting down with one of our seniors, and they are going to be reviewing and reflecting on their year of 2020. Hope you guys enjoy.
So, thank you so much for coming in today and having this conversation with me.
Yeah, of course.
Before we get started, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
All right. My name is Mary Jo Wadsworth, and I'm a senior this year at Temple Academy. I spend a lot of my time here serving at the church. If I'm not home or at school, I do booth and stage camera and pro presenter, and this week I'm actually starting lights training. So.
Whoa, that's really cool. Hey, me too a lot. That's awesome.
Yeah, I really enjoy serving at the church.
So, today we're going to get into a topic that is still a little bit of a sore subject for a lot of people, the year 2020. As the end of the year drew near, we probably all noticed and felt that everybody was just pretty much like done with the year. Like we were all ready to move on, put it behind us. But sometimes it's good to look back and reflect on the things that we went through. God is always trying to teach us something new, and I believe that if we just move on from the year without taking that time to look back, then we might miss the lesson that God wanted to teach us. So looking back in hindsight often gives us insight for the future. So MJ, overall, if you could sum up your 2020, how would you describe it?
Well, one of my favorite terms used has definitely been dumpster fire, but if we're being serious, in all honesty, I really would just describe it as just a year of growth, because I learned a lot about myself and kind of God's plan for me, and just learning to kind of go with the changes of life, because they're going to be there, they're inevitable, and you can't change that. So just learning to really stop and slow down and enjoy the small good moments in life, and just really important. So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, definitely a lot of time to reflect and slow down this year, so that's good that you took advantage of it. So at what point in the year did you start to realize that things were going bad? Can you remember like any specific moment that stood out to you?
I don't remember exact moments, but I feel like it started to get pretty real when school started to shut down, and specifically when my school did. I didn't really take it too hard, but it just really kind of realizing like this is real, like school's shut down. So that was probably the moment somewhere in March that it really started to feel real.
Yeah, no, definitely. I was gonna ask you about school as well. Like, so what happened the day that school shut down for you?
So it wasn't for me personally. Like, I didn't take it that hard. I was honestly kind of like, oh, I don't have to get dressed in the morning or get up early. I can just wear my PJs. So I was kind of okay with it. Like, I don't have to go into school. I'm okay with it. But obviously, over time, that started to change, and it got a little weirder with not being able to see people and kind of just home a lot. So it definitely got a little more difficult, but so far it was pretty good most of the part.
Good. That's good to hear that it wasn't too crazy for you
not too
at the
bad.
beginning. Yeah.
Definitely the workload sometimes was like you feel a little overwhelmed and just boggled down by all of it, because it's all just like at one point, you don't have it spaced out with different classes at a time.
Yeah.
But so learning to deal with that was definitely a little challenging.
Yeah, so I would say that probably a lot of people felt that same way this year. That was probably true for most people. Honestly, switching from an in-person, type of environment to that virtual online learning, something new for, I think, everybody really who had been in school this year. So was there ever a time this year for schoolwork specifically where all of it was just so overwhelming that you almost felt like giving up? And if so, how did you overcome that feeling?
For me personally, giving up has never really been like an option. It's like, oh, I'm just not gonna do that. I've always in my family, it's always been like, you don't quit, you do your best you can, and you always get it done. And I've always kind of held myself to a higher standard, and I've always got to get the best grades and put a lot of pressure on myself for that. So I never had like the thought like, I'm not gonna do this, but I was definitely found myself a lot kind of putting things off till closer to the deadline, and then you get a little more stressed. So that was definitely something I had to work through. But I would feel overwhelmed and stressed by the workload. But something my mom actually told me a little while ago really like resonated with me, and I kind of used that all year long. It was that when you start feeling stressed, you just kind of like step back and just consider, is there anything you can do about like the stress right now? Like, can you do it? Can you work on it? And if you can, then do it. Don't think about it. Just pick somewhere to start and do it. And if you can't, then there's no sense in stressing or worrying about it because you can't do anything about it at the moment. So even though it seems like such a simple thing to think about, I would always just find myself really just considering that and just like, okay, either I can do it and I'm gonna work on it, or I can't. And just finding a way to separate those really helped me to just kind of calm down and just take it all in.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really good advice for all of us, I think, and like all sorts of different scenarios, not just schoolwork. But okay, MJ, so did you have any favorite worship songs that came out of the year 2020?
There was a lot of them, but specifically one of my favorite songs was Breakthrough by Red Rocks Worship.
Ooh, yeah.
And yeah, so for that song particularly, I had heard it a couple times on the radio driving the car, and it was like, oh, this is a good song, but it never really stood out to me that much. And there was just this one day that I was getting in the car by myself to go get groceries. And I remember I turned on the car and the radio came on, and I just kind of sat there for a second and just hearing it really hearing it for the first time. And I just got like goosebumps all through my body, and I was just like, wow. Because the song is really just kind of like a cry out to God, because it's just when you're getting weary from all the waves and like the waves of life, it's just a cry to God to rescue us. And at the same time, it's also just like recognizing how powerful God is and recognizing that He can and will give us a victory and save us. So it's a really great song. And there's definitely been a lot of them, but that one ended up being my most listened to song of 2020 at the end of the year.
Very cool.
So,
like Spotify wrap up.
That was it.
That is awesome. Oh yeah, that's a really good song. I think that I have to say my favorite was probably The Blessing.
Oh, yeah.
I love that song. I've always loved those verses, so when it was like in song format, I was just like, oh my gosh. Like, yeah, even now I still get like the goosebumps hearing it. I'm like, this is great. So,
definitely.
Yeah. So is there anything specific that God was teaching you last year?
There's definitely many things. I talked about like just kind of slowing down, enjoying just the little moments in life. And I feel like this year particularly, we really just found a way to somehow get through it, and being home a lot. Somehow, even if it doesn't seem like we can, just somehow always make it through. And just realize like sometimes you have to, because some people like it was like kind of not like being at home a lot, but I feel like we have to just take the changes of life and just learn to accept them and find a way to enjoy them, and just finding like the peaceful moments at home with family or whatever it is. And I know that being at home definitely isn't always peaceful because it can get really crazy, but even just going outside and like taking a breath of fresh air and really just taking in nature. And that's one of my favorite places I've always gone to, like talk to God or just to pray, because it's one of my favorite things. I feel like we, in just the rush of life, and like if we hadn't gone through this whole year, it's kind of overlooked of just like small details. Yeah. But this year definitely taught me to just kind of slow down and just enjoy every little bit of it.
That's really awesome. Yeah, this year definitely gave a lot of opportunity for us to sit in His presence in a way that we probably wouldn't have been able to because of everything else going on in our lives. Like we don't have time always to sit down and spend, a couple hours like with the Lord. But this year was kind of like, well, you have nothing else to do. Like, why don't you take the time to grow in your relationship? So, okay, so one last question. Is there anything that you know now that you didn't know at the beginning of 2020?
Yes, so this is a little confusing, but I actually didn't know that I wouldn't know right now exactly what I want to do with my life. So I always thought I kind of had it figured out, but actually through this last message series right now that we're going through about steps of faith and hearing from other people, I just have really stopped and feeling like I don't know if I'm going the exact plan that God has for my life, because I've always, since I was really young, wanted to be a vet. and it's carried out with me throughout my whole life, and I've always wanted to do that, and I still might, but I just find myself considering just being like, this might not be God's plan, but that's okay. So I'm just kind of learning to then just step back and be like, I'm just gonna follow through with life steps, but let God just lead and try. That's like my main goal for 2021 is just to let God lead me wherever he sees fit. So.
That is awesome. Being open to his will and just following wherever he leads you. That's so cool. That's awesome. Okay. Well, that's all the time that we have for today. So MJ, thank you so much for joining us today for our Tuesday Teen Talk. And I just want to say thank you so much, though, for real, for everything that you do for our church. I mean, you said everything that you do, plus more that you didn't say at the beginning. You definitely bless us just being in our lives, and we love having you as a part of Central Youth and just in our lives personally. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
The end.
Well, thanks for joining us for another week of Teen Talk Tuesday. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you want to see more content like this, make sure to subscribe and to follow our page. Give us a like or a comment. We'd love to keep sharing these videos with you guys. Have a great week, guys. Stay safe. God bless. Keep the faith.